regards to what are the aspects that are supporting the factories in these three countries and improving their scores, and what are the aspects which are working out well. Yeah. Okay. So first, for you to know, based on the participants that have registered and that are joining, we see at the moment that majority of you all are joining us from Bangladesh, which makes sense. You all have just started your week today, but we also have colleagues coming in from a participant from Pakistan, India, and at the moment, one participant, yeah, from UK. And with regards to the feedback that you all provided when you were registering, we see that many of you have, of course, multiple aspects that your product factories are working on. And this gives an idea on who you mentioned your role is. So for example, we see a lot of factories are in having dyeing processes. Many of you are also finished good manufacturers, so cut and sew, but a complete spectrum in terms of the processes at factories. You all also gave feedback that around 60% of the registered participants mentioned that in your facilities there are like no personnel with ZDHC training certificate, while the others mentioned that you all have at least one person with ZDHC training. Yeah. And when being asked about the aspects or sections where you feel additional training might be required, then as per your feedback, we see that chemicals is the section that many of you would like to know more about. And then we also see that waste management is an area of concern along with energy. So to give you an idea, we have today on our panel a group of colleagues who have been deeply involved on the topic of not just Higg assessment, but also on energy audit, on water efficiency programs, on trainings for chemical management as per ZDHC, but also SAC Higg. So the first of them being Miss Fatima Jahan. She's based in our office in Dhaka in Bangladesh, and she leads our team for CSR and sustainability audits, assessment, and assurance services. We also have our colleague, Mr. Vakil Hussain, joining us. He's also based in Dhaka. He's our program manager for sustainability services. So he engages with factories on training topics for ZDHC, but also on waste management, on energy, and so on. And he also works together with international donors like GIZ and others on developing capacity and implementing capacity development programs. Then from India, we have our colleague Venkat. He's involved in, of course, SAC Higg FEM assessments, but also has deep experiences with working with textile facilities in India, in South India, on improvement actions on the topic of water, energy, and chemical. Then from Pakistan, we have Mr. Akhlaq Hussain. He is, of course, our Higg FEM chemical specialist verifier, but he's also our trainer for ZDHC. And together with our leader, Mr. Rashid Mansoor in Pakistan, they work together with textile factories and mills on improvements in terms of energy, water, chemicals, and so on. Yeah, we also engage together with GIZ in Pakistan on these aspects. And myself, my name is Rakesh Fazirani. I'm based out of our office in Hong Kong, and together with our global team, we support on sustainability services for consumer product manufacturers. Okay. At the moment, all of you all are on mute, but when we go to the question and answer, we will, of course, unmute yourself, unmute you all, so that you'll be able to ask questions. Meanwhile, if there are any topics or questions or expectations that you would have, please use the chat or the Q&A option and put in your feedback. Our colleagues will continue looking at it. Yeah. Okay. And today's session is being recorded. Farhad, is it correct? We are recording today's session. Yes. So at the end, you all will receive, of course, the recording and also the presentation. Um, as we start off, you all would have seen that when we announced the webinar, we had a nominal fee of $5 US. And as you would have heard from our colleagues involved, the objective was to utilize these fees and to provide it to the textile associations who are supporting workers who are in distress. But Vakil, can you briefly share with us what we plan to do with the proceeds of today's webinar?
Yeah, sure. What we are planning is all the money we gathered from this webinar, we'll accumulate them and we'll deposit this to the fund of BGMEA for the COVID
Okay.
workers, COVID patients under textile industry or apparel garment industry. So they will then distribute this money on behalf of us.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, Rakesh. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Vakil, for that. Right. And then Vakil or Farhad, when you see some more participants joining, please admit them, yeah, in the background. Okay. All right. Then, of course, one of the hot topics, one of the primary challenge which all of us are facing, no matter where we are today, is because of COVID and the challenging situation it has presented. What we understand from you, but also from industry associations, for example, is that in all of these three countries, in Bangladesh, India, and Pakistan, reopening has already started. So many of you would be looking at, of course, taking care of the orders, looking at the stock that you all have, taking care of your workers, and so on. But at least from economic activity standpoint, it appears now that things are opening up, and it will get better with time. Yeah, so that's good. As we go ahead today, the plan for today is that we will have a look at some of these aspects. So while we talk about SAC Higg, let's have a brief look at why SAC Higg FEM is relevant, how it fits into place with the overall sustainability aspects for textile industry, both on factory level, but also on your brand and retailers, yeah, or your buyers. And then we'll have a look at Higg FEM scores. So while all of them are important, we will have a look at the big picture with Fatima, and then we will go into the aspects of providing you guidance based on the how to Higg and from our trainer, Mr. Vakil. After that, we'll take a short break. Yeah. So let's go from now until the break, and then we'll look further as we move ahead. So the one thing which comes to mind, yeah, when we talk about the fashion industry and all the garments that you all produce at your facilities, it has an impact. Yeah, all of us, our families, our children, we wear those garments. We look at ourselves, and the thing that comes to our mind is, of course, it makes us feel good. It allows us to express ourselves with the different garments. Yeah, so that's the positive impact on human life. But it also comes with an impact on the resources and on the environment. So we've heard this for a long time from NGOs, but also from those factories who are actively investing on sustainability, that in order to understand what has to change, what has to improve, it's important to understand for all of us what's the current situation. So uh, a lot of water, of course, is used based on the kind of finish you want, based on the kind of garment you're producing. A lot of chemicals are also used when we as consumers or whenever brands, they want us to produce a particular color of garment, yeah, or a particular finish. All of that is thanks to the different chemicals. So a lot of chemicals are used to provide the function, to provide the color, to provide the features that are requested by consumers and brands. But like in all production areas, whenever we produce something, unless it's with just hand, it also needs machinery. There's a lot of energy being consumed. Um, some of it, some of those chemicals, some of that energy releases emissions, of course. both in air and in wastewater, which is what we've been seeing for a long time. And of course, as we look at one of the tangible aspects, then it's a point of energy. We know from the data that has been captured from several countries that energy costs for textile production can be significant. It can be as high as 35% in some countries, and it can be as low as, let's say, 15%, yeah, in advanced countries like US and so on. So, of course, addressing the energy use in an effective manner can support you in managing your cost on the bottom line. But when we step back a little bit, as factories, of course, it makes sense to focus on all these resource efficiency aspects, because better resource efficiency would allow savings in cost. Yeah, but what is one of the drivers that is pushing the big brands and retailers to move ahead? We hear from NGOs being pressurized, the retailers being pressurized by NGOs. But there's another aspect. When we talk about the big global retailers, let's say Gap or Nike or Adidas or PVH and many more, many of them are listed on the stock exchange. Many of them prepare their annual sustainability report. Yeah. So together with their financial report, where they indicate the profit and loss for every year, they also have to prepare this non-financial report as per GRI or SASB, where it's clearly required that these brands, retailers, they have to showcase the impact of chemicals used in the products that they are purchasing and selling. There's also requirement there that these big brands and retailers who are listed on stock exchanges or who are preparing annual reports, they have to indicate what is the situation in the supply chain, both in tier 1 and tier 2, in terms of wastewater discharge, in terms of the agreements that they have, including, as you see here, mention about the SAC's Higg FEM scoring. Yeah, so that's also one of the reasons that many of these retailers are requesting their supply chains to utilize the Higg FEM tools, because they have to showcase this to their investors in order to make sure that they get their funds. Yeah, so that's a financial aspect. But then there's, of course, also the aspect with regards to overall shareholders. Yeah, so these are shareholders who are investing money, but these are also, let's say, the future stakeholders for all of these brands and retailers who are demanding this, which in turn is being passed on to factories. Many of you would be aware of these names, of course, the SAC, Sustainable Apparel Coalition's Higg Index we talk about today. But this is also closely linked to the ZDHC, or the Roadmap to Zero Discharge of Hazardous Chemicals, especially the overlap in terms of the chemical management aspect. And then there is the Amphori standard, which also has chemical management and environmental management aspects. So they kind of blend in together and overlap with each other. So, and also the producers are many of those that perhaps you all are representing, or perhaps you all like purchasing clothes from. What we also see is in terms of the membership of these three industry initiatives, there's a lot of overlap. So of course, all of these brand retailers want to take advantage of the effort that the factories are doing on SAC, Higg FEM, to have a better scoring on ZDHC aspect, yeah, or the outdoor industry scoring aspect. When we look at numbers, it appears that it's about 38% of the world's fashion industry is backing these initiatives on improving resource efficiency aspects of energy, of water, of waste, and also of chemicals. But at the same time, we also hear the recent developments in terms of water. Many of the textile factories and many of you are located in countries which have a high risk of water scarcity. And this, of course, water being a crucial resource for all of us as a basic necessity, and the push coming in from the UN means many of the large brands and retailers have committed to water stewardship. Yeah, So these are some of the names which are officially part of the UN CEO water mandate. So all of that will also be pushed into requirements on SAC or water stewardship programs or resource efficiency with regards to water. Um, and then if we were to step one more step back, then all of these efforts would also support the countries, Bangladesh, India, Pakistan. Each one of these countries have national action plans or NAPs to help progress on the sustainable development goals, to make sure that workers have basic necessity, to make sure that there's quality education, that there's clean water and sanitation, but also to make sure that there's decent work taking place for the workers in these countries. And all of these programs, initiatives also link into these SDGs, whether it be upon responsible practices for social labor or engaging together factories with brands and donors and local government. But when we talk about one of the important SDG of responsible production, what this graphic shows is, don't worry, it's not a eye test, but this graphic is showing the interconnectedness on how having improved progress on responsible production, there will be contribution to all the other sustainable development goals. So it's also in the best interest of the country governments and the policymakers and the regulators to support, to facilitate sustainable production, so as to have progress on all other aspects, whether it be of quality, decent work, or yeah, or of clean water and so on. Now, we also have to realize that as we look at today's webinar, and we talk about our industry of the fashion industry, there are several risks. Yeah, there's a risk of worker safety, social labor aspects, and of course also the risk about bribery, which is the mother of all risks. But today our focus will be on environmental risks and how these are mitigated via different measures. Yeah. So with that, I would want to request our colleague, Ms. Fatima, to take us through all the data analysis that has been performed with regards to Higg scores at TÜV Rheinland, and to get some insights on this topic. Yeah? So over the next 22 to 25 minutes, we'll have a deeper look into this. Fatima?
Yes, thank you, Rakesh.
Yeah, all right.
Hope everyone could hear me, and thanks again for joining.
Yes.
Um,
Okay.
In this part, I would like to share some data, maybe figures and data which will relating to Higg verification. Mainly our focus is today for within this region, covering India, Bangladesh and Pakistan. And so that I believe it will help us to figure out the present in terms of implementation. So the main in this slide we could view that total 10,545 facilities in 89 countries using these Higg modules worldwide, and which reflects the acceptance of Higg modules globally, and each year the number is increasing. When the Higg module started, comparing to 2017 to 2018, we could see that 182% facilities are joined in Higg modules. So it shows that factories are accepting these modules. And if we compare to 2018 to 19, another 19.62% has increased. And of course, it's good that facilities have believed on this module as their sustainability few impact cases, which is that means After implementation of these Higg modules in the facilities, whenever facilities adapting this module to their sustainable partner, it has a great impact to their actions or implementation in the environmental aspects. As we see that in terms of total 8% energy is less used just after implementation one for per unit production of garments. And the same other figures is also impressive. 180k liter of diesel fuel is reduced. Solar system is implemented. Maybe we could the main area where factory could reduce their costing, and of course it will ultimately help on environmental efficiency to considering the total globe. And Higg is helping to the factories to develop in a constructive manner to reach their goal. And relating to that, we see the efficiency in water use. It is reduced 17% in only in 6 months, and reduction in use of caustic soda and sulfuric acid also. So all the initiative which help us to in progress. And of course, overall, if we count the electricity use, it's reduced 20% by lot of initiative. Rakesh, can you
Yes,
go
are
to
you
the
able to see
next slide?
the Higg suite of tools?
I can see.
Yeah. So Fatima, we are looking at the set of tools
I can see.
from Higg.
Maybe some network issue, but I could.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, it's there. Yeah. Today, our product tools, Higg facility tools, and Higg brand and retail tools. But today, our facility module, and we within this region, we could see that as we are today covering India, Bangladesh, and Pakistan, most of the verifications and these data will basing on the verification done by two brainland, not the global data. Just we make the summary overall verifications happen by two brainland. So as per our data, we could see that most of the verifications done in Bangladesh, and next in India, and finally Pakistan. And sorry, second position Pakistan is there, and we divided some zonal reflection there. Dhaka means surrounding Dhaka, in Dhaka region, and most of the verifications is done there. Almost 52% in Bangladesh factories, we did the verification, 31% in Pakistan, and 17% in India. And you see, we want to divide some into the accepting or doing the Higg verifications, and most are the apparel industry, covering in all the three countries. And after that, these are including home textile, accessories, and home furnishing and footwear also. And footwear is still in behind to accept these Higg modules. But we hope that it will join with Higg modules to improve their facility condition also. And the next data, which will show you that the facilities which are covering wet processing that are accepting this module, almost 50% factories with wet processing going for with the Higg modules. Here now I want to show some comparison between the Higg modules in 2018 and 2019. We could see that there are some improvement, not some, it's a huge improvement comparing 2018-2019, because we all know that it is not very easy to improve in all sectors. But the most improvement we noticed in energy and greenhouse emission areas. And if we see that second point is in water use, and third, the important matter is chemical management. In chemical management, there is a huge improvement from the facilities if we compare in the percentage. And as water use and energy use, it helped us to our cost reduction also. So already facility accepting that. If we go to the next slide, we could show you that some gaps, mainly from the self-assessment score and the verified score. From all the sections, it is a general overview, and we could see that mostly the gap identified in chemical management area. Maybe in self-assessment, there are, it could be happening for any time, but in chemical sector, the gap is most. We could go for by each section so that it could be give you a clear picture that why it's happened. And relating to the previous slide, it shows that chemical management is the most gap where we found, and the next is waste management. After that, air emission, wastewater, and EMS. And we could see that regarding this energy and GHG emission, the less gap has identified, because factories are maybe know about this area very well. They are well aware, so that gap is less in this area. Here in this slide, the average score achievement, we could say. Most achieved area is, this is the total comparison. If you could see that self-assessment average score is 60.85, whereas the verified score is 54.67. It reflects that there is not too much deviation in overall average score, but maybe for particular section wise, there might be some gaps. But overall, there is not lot of gap in between, but particular section wise, there is few gaps which could be managed by the facilities, we believe. And the gap here, okay. We all know who are already implement Higg FEM module in our facilities, that each and every sections, it covered in 3 levels: level 1, level 2, and level 3. Level 1 is mainly to understanding and tracking, that I know about my factory or my facility, And level 2 is to identifying the baseline and managing and setting goals and targets, mainly setting the baseline. And third level is covering 25% of the marks, and it's the leading practice, maybe beyond the law, beyond the requirement, something extra. And in this data, you could visualize that there are few difference in water and energy section depending on the applicability. If in this data, you could maybe if water is not used in industrial level, only domestic use, then level 2 and level 3 will not applicable for that factories, and level 1 will cover all the total 100%. And for the energy use, for level 3 question, there is no marking. Level 1 will equal to 50% and level 2 will cover 50% marks. Now we want to go in deeper side to identify section wise where the most gaps has identified. First of all, if we go to the EMS section, we could see that all the factories not very deviation in level 1. Whatever the self-assessment score and whatever the verified score, almost equal, and up within the 25 marks, most of the marks they achieved. In the level 2, still there is in a very good condition in at least the factories in this region, and here is also not too much gap as identified. But in level 3 achievement, we could see that there is among the 25% marks, almost factories are not achieving the 50% marks. So we could see that if any factory want to achieve level 3, they have to work with these level 3 questions. Here is a great chance to work with to improve his scores. If we go to energy section, also here level 1, almost factories are achieving the total number of the level 1 marks, and in level 2, here is some improvement area for level 2 scores. Energy is already in a concern to the factories, so still there is a good percentage there. Almost 36% they achieved, and not very much deviation in self-assessment and verified score. As level 3 is no scores, so factory have to work with these level 2 questions to improve their scores for the next year. We maybe all are struggling in this waste area. We are capable to identify our wastage as we acquire a very good score in level 1. It reflects that we could identify our wastages. But we face difficulties in level 2. Level 2 to manage the wastages, maybe in storing, dispose of, and as we could see, there is not too much deviation in the self-assessment and verified score, but we are struggling to achieve the scores. Among the 50%, only 10 to 15% we are achieving. Average, it is only 13%. So we have a great opportunity to improve this area, but still, I know there is lots of difficulties to implement it. Maybe we will cover in country-wise expectation, because government legal initiative is most important there. In water section, water, we all know it's a very concern, So we have availability of water is very available in Bangladesh, and of course it was not in our very concern at the very beginning, but after implementation of lots of initiative from brands, retailers, and others, we are now concerned about the water, and this is the area where the factories are get the uh, most of the scores, and no deviation in level 1. Level 2 almost they have achieved uh, if they take an initiative to uh, efficient use of water and baseline assessment. And finally, in level 3, still few maybe factories are struggling implementation of few things, but still it's gap of almost 25%, but still in very good condition in water level. The wastewater section, the questions will be applicable for the factories. It is divided by applicability, the factories which have produced wastewater or not. Those who are producing wastewater, yeah, then the level 3 will be applicable for them. But if anyone not emit any wastewater or produce any wastewater, then level 3 will not applicable for them, and the scores will divided 50% in each level for level 1 and level 2. And still, for the factories who are not producing wastewater from industrial level, they are struggling to achieve level 2, level 2 targets, and level 1 also almost 25, 50%. They have opportunity to increase their scores, and level 2 just the beginning. Still lot of work to do in level 2 for those who are not producing wastewater. But those who are producing wastewater, it is just opposite scenario, because we are doing a lot of things to control our wastewater. It reflects in the scoring also. In the level 1, it's a very good score, 19% almost among the 25%, and level 2 also almost 40%. When the total marks is 50%, it's a very good. And now these facilities have to work with the level 3, because still there is a lot of gap in there, almost 3% scores achieved among this 25% score. So here lot to do from the factories. Air emission, still there, due to this legal requirement, other things, we are struggling in air emission also. And of course in level 2. Level 1, we could see that there is gap in self-assessment score and verified score. Almost gap is 4%. So we have to cautious about this. Maybe to identifying our, there is some gaps in identifying the emission to air. So we have to focus on that. And air emission area, still lots of initiative have to take from the government level, and still we have lot to do in this area. Chemical management section is a very vital part. We know who are using chemicals and having the wet processing in Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, in all the countries, lot of chemical used. We have dyeing factories, printing factories, and washing factories also. And we are we are increasing, I feel, if we see the modules and factories also, as lots of initiative has taken from the brand side also, we're increasing in the scoring of the chemical sections also, uh, but still almost 25% gap in level 2, and level 3 has just started. And we could see that there is a very big gap in self-assessment and verified scores, almost 50%, whereas self-assessment average score is 13.04. Sorry, self-assessment score is 25%, their verified score is only 13%, almost 50%. So maybe there we have to work a lot to identify ourselves. This uh, already who have completed the self-assessment and going for the verification, you know that the timeline uh, set by Sumira for completing the Higg FEM self-assessment. Initially, it was planned to complete the self-assessment by 30th June, but due to this corona pandemic, it has extended up to 14th August, and submit the time deadline is 14th August to submit the verification module. And already few factories started their verification in the factories, and few are still waiting to fine tune their informations and updating. And please remember it is August 14th, the deadline to submit the verification self-assessment.
Thank you, Fatima. So it's still a few days, yeah, to complete this week. Thank you very much for those insights, especially with the data on a macro level. So it's very, of course, positive to see the developments compared to in the past couple of years. And it's also good to see how factories with wastewater have made a lot of progress. What as key takeaway from your section, Fatima, it's the aspect of the gap between the self-assessment score and verified score, for example, for chemicals topic, but also the gaps that exist, or the low scores that exist for the sections for water and waste and air emission in some aspects. So Vakil, I think all of that data, it's asking and screaming and saying, Mr. Vakil Hussain, our trainer for Higg, please tell us how should factories have their interpretation or understanding of how to Higg, and what can be done by the factories to improve their scores. Yeah, Vakil, could you take us through
Yeah,
the next
sure. Thanks,
section?
Rakesh. So in this section, we will briefly focus on some specific points that may be regarding waste, chemical management, and air emission. All of the points cannot be covered within this short amount of time. So some points or some self-assessment issues that we finally verify in a different way, those kind of things we will discuss in this section.
Okay.
So all things like prior
Vakil,
to Rakesh, you want to
yes,
say anything?
Vakil,
Yeah.
I was just wondering, as we start looking into the aspects, yeah, on what to improve, perhaps if the participants can give their feedback to the ongoing poll. So on your section, on your screen, you would be seeing a poll, a question, what we feel are the reasons of, let's say, low scores, or the reason for the difference in the self-assessment versus verified score and so on. So if you all can please select any one of the option from what you see,
Yeah, we can
we'll run it
see.
for,
Yeah,
yeah,
5% already voted.
yeah, okay.
7. So
Farhad,
you
yeah, sorry, Vakil,
yeah,
after you.
yeah, no, you can continue voting. I am continuing saying the thing.
Yeah,
Uh, all the things like such initiatives of Higg FEM or BPI, these are the initiatives that has been started maybe 3 or 4 years back. But prior to that, different brands or different development organizations, they started this initiative called cleaner production. So that cleaner production was the aim to reduce waste or pollution from the industrial process, the way factory can reduce their waste, increase their resource efficiency, by the way they can reduce the pollution as well as they can have their economic benefits from their process. So these are the initial stages. If we can give some example like Pact Partnership for Cleaner Textile of IFC, or Save, one project of Puma, and another different projects from different specific brands to focus these issues of cleaner production, or specifically if we can say a reduction of waste and pollution. So 12% already voted.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to post it to the audience, or maybe Farhad, you can try support us later, yeah, to post the poll results to the audience. Okay, thank you. So it's all of the above, yeah, Wakil. Lack of finance, lack of local experts, and so on. Okay,
Okay.
please continue.
Okay, now in this slide you can see that this is one example of chemical management. What are the things or initiatives you need to take in your factory? You can summarize like this. This slide has been taken from a training of GIZ training, resource efficient management of chemical. So this is one example for specifically for chemical management. So for other management as well, you can also do this kind of visual representation to show your brands or other stakeholders that these are the activities we are doing to comply our chemical management or energy management or water management. So in this section you can see that hazard assessment needs to be done for the factory, then chemical inventory, hazard information, this information has to be recorded. So all this information has to be recorded, then finally the factory can focus on the documentation part. So for hazard assessment, what they need to do, they have to document that, then the result has to be implemented on the floor level. Similarly, for if you consider for the output case, maybe for air emission controlling, what the initiative factory needs to take, what are the inventory of air emission factory maintaining, all the emission points are covered under that inventory or not. This kind of information has to be documented. Then for other output like waste management for wastewater management. So for these topics, what are the activities you are doing and what are the documents for those activities you are maintaining. This way you can give a good visual representation for your brands and other stakeholders as well. So now in this slide we can see that for EMS, the basic one question where we find that there are factories says that they're doing a lot of things, but they are missing some points. Like we find almost every factory, we find that they have a maintenance schedule or they have a way to maintain their equipments. But the thing is that most of the cases we don't find that documented. So like here you can see this example. This has been taken from How to Higg guideline. So in that you will find in detail. So these are the minimum or primary or limited information you should have in your maintenance schedule or in your equipment maintenance documents. I am sharing you one example. So in one factory, I have seen that the factory has a very big size register book of maintenance, schedule maintenance, and that book should be at least 300 of page. So maybe last 1 or 2 years of maintenance schedule has been recorded there. So I have said them, okay, this is your maintenance book, this is a good practice. Now can you please show me that in 1 or 2 or maybe 5 circumstances where you have rectified some problem and written it down in that register book. But unfortunately, factory could not show any of those circumstances. That means factory is showing by that document, they are trying to show that in the last 2 or 3 years, no equipment has been broke down, no equipment has need any maintenance, nothing has been out of control. But that is not looking realistic. So we should also try to not to make a document for the sake of make a document. So maybe our document can be very small, but it should be precise that we can work on that management things, or that document can be used in the future for different root cause analysis related with maintenance. Then the next slide you can see that the another question is regarding in EMS, question number 8, that does your facility have a the personnel who is competent enough to look after your EMS section. So if he has good competence, then he can get full mark. But here the one catch point is factory has to do the annual appraisal. It is not the annual appraisal for salary or for salary review. This is mainly focusing the annual appraisal for that person's competency to check if he is competent enough to do the all activities related with EMS. He understands energy thing, he understands chemical thing, everything. Does he understand or not? So this is the main point. So you have to make sure that you do at least once an annual review for the competency of the personnel who is responsible for your EMS. So for this you can do like you can do some 1 page or 2 page, whatever you're convenient, but you should have a system that you are appraising that person that okay, he is competent enough to look after this EMS, and he is successfully completed all the previous years, maybe Higg verification, self-assessment, then another other chemical management audit or other things. This way you can do this to achieve full 25% of your score. The next you can see that for waste section, one example of the difference between self-assessment and verified verification. You see that mainly two question for storage. There are two separate questions. One is for non-hazardous waste, another is for hazardous waste. For those two questions, there are sub questions. So you have to focus on each of every sub question that your waste storage are complying those points as well. If you cannot comply all those sub questions 100%, then you will not be able to achieve full score for this question. Like for example, sub question is one is that is it separately the is dedicated. I mean, the waste storage is hazardous waste storage is dedicated for a specific person. Is it authorized for accessibility authorization? Is there required or not? Or is there enough fire protection required for that storage is given in that storage or not? If it is weatherproof, that if there is any chance for rainwater come into the storage and then contaminate the waste material, and then that water, contaminated wastewater, can be go to the environment. So these kind of sub questions you have to fulfill those sub questions to make sure that you achieve full number from this question. And another part is that disposal. Rakesh, please. Yeah, for disposal method, also in most of the factories they don't answer this question. They think something maybe it is very difficult. It is not that much difficult. Maybe I think it will be very easier for textile factories, at least in Bangladesh, because most of the textile factories maximum amount of waste is generated from the production process or from the factory main maybe garmenting or textile manufacturing. So if you consider all those waste, then maybe more than 50% of waste would be coming from those waste, either fabric cut pieces or fabric or defected material, those kind of waste. So those waste are not going to the land disposal or not going to the incineration like this. They are definitely going for the recycling or reuse. So you have to make sure that you collect those data maybe from the guy you are selling these material to. You can get information from them. Then that way you can show that your disposal is the either reusing or recycling maximum amount of disposal of your factory. So this way you can achieve this, because this question is focusing that you have to make sure that you are mostly reusing or recycling your waste rather landfilling or incinerating your waste. So this way you can try to get a score from this question of waste disposal. And for air emission, you can see that one applicability question maybe most of the factories are facing, or maybe they are not getting the real intention of this question. So prior to going to air emission section, I'm talking about the full Higg FEM things, all the things in Higg FEM in every sections. That is mainly to focus what are the things you are doing in your factory, and if you are aware of those things, then you are taking initiative to reduce, to improve those things, and finally you have some exceptional or market best practice or whatever not regular, you are doing those as well. So in these aspects are covered in those sections. So in air emission section, so main intention is what are the emissions has been happening from your factory. So for this question, you can see that does your facility emit any does the facility have any air emission from facility operation that are not regulated by a permit? So in Bangladesh, there is no permit for air emission most of the cases, but obviously as it's the industrial process, there are definitely air emissions. So in Bangladesh cases, most of the 100% of the factories, it would be yes, Bangladesh has air emissions that are not permitted by the regulations. But this question is not focusing on the permit. This question is focusing if you are aware about that, what are the air emissions from your factory. So for, once you have to know that, first you have to know that, then you can also control or monitor that air emission. So that if the next applicable question is, since Bangladesh doesn't have any air emission requirement for most of the cases, so that next question is most of the cases in Bangladesh will be no, because you don't have any permit requirement. So there is no question of being non-compliant under that permit. So in Bangladesh cases, so most of the cases, the first question would be yes, and second question would be no. So similarly, for the other applicability part of air emission, if you select the question in the right way, what are the process you have? The most of the cases we find that most of the factories doesn't select industrial oven. If you see in the first column, bullet number 4, industrial oven. So industrial oven is also common in most of the Bangladesh factory. Though the word oven is not familiar in Bangladesh, the Bangladesh word is familiar like dryer or stentor or tenter. So these kind of equipments are available in Bangladesh. So definitely you have industrial oven in your factory. Though oven is not commonly used word in Bangladeshi factory, but stentor, dryer, and these kind of machines are there. So it will be applicable for Bangladeshi factory as well. So if you select the right way in this applicability first column, you will get, based on this selection, you will get different lines or rows to answer in under question 3 and question 4. Similarly for the process, what other process you have that like finishes also applicable for most of the factories in Bangladesh. We find that most of the factory doesn't give anything things, but the here finishes is maybe we are using some solvent to increase the luster of the fabric. Maybe you are using antimicrobial chemical. Maybe you are using wicking chemical. So this kind of finishes is very common in Bangladesh. So this kind of finishes so is available in Bangladesh as well. Most of the textile factory in Bangladesh or all over the world. So you have to have definitely, if you are a textile processing factory, you have to have definitely finishes applicable for you. Maybe if you are only curtains or garmenting factory, that finishing will not be applicable for you. But if you are a wet processing factory, definitely finishing chemicals are used in your factory, and this would be applicable for you as well. And based on your selection, the rest of the question would be pop up in the later part of the question. Then if we go to the EMS, a specific question. So for some EMS and other air emission wastewater section, there are some specific questions where you can directly get support from a company like us. You can take like in this section, one question is your responsible guy for EMS is competent enough? So how you are assessing his competency? So for that you can arrange different training for him. So this like ZDC training, Higg FEM training, or specific brand wise, or specific, you have some needs assessment. Based on that you have what are the needs for that specific guy, then based on that you have giving some training to them. So this kind of training you can take from us, and we can provide any of the training, ZDC training or Higg FEM training, or any specific training based on your needs. We can arrange this kind of trainings, and that can be incorporated with your question 8 under EMS of Higg FEM. Then similarly for wastewater, so there is a specific in level 2 question that does the facility do any kind of follow any kind of wastewater standard, and this is mainly focusing on the special standards like that. If some example is also there, ZDC wastewater guideline, DSR, IP. So these are the not regular standard. These are going beyond to the regular government or regulatory requirements. So like some brands are also doing tests for factories, but following the regulatory requirement, those tests will not be for factories but following the regulatory requirement, those tests would not be
Vakil.
applicable under this section. So
Yeah.
this should sorry, I was disconnected. So now in this section as well, for under chemical section, question number 10. This is also the question is: do you provide MRSL or RSL training to your factory people? So in this Higg section, it is not specifically saying anything, but in other initiatives, on our other chemical management audits or other initiatives, you will find that these MRSL or RSL trainings must be provided all of the team member of your chemical management team. So your chemical management team members should definitely have clear idea of what is MRSL, what is RSL. So this kind of training also you can arrange yourself, or apart from that you can also take ZDSC training or other trainings, other customized trainings or need-based trainings. You can communicate with us as well for training, and we are also approved training provider for ZDSC trainings. So this question for question 10, you have to have for Higg requirement is you have to have at least annual once training of MRSL RSL for your employee. Here no for employee there is no guideline, but in other audit or other guidelines, chemical management guidelines, the guideline is your chemical management team member, all of your chemical management team member must have clear idea about RSL and MRSL. So that you have to make sure. So then the level 3, another question is, does your facility test your chemicals annual basis at least once? So these kind of things you can also do some maybe for some of the factories for different brands there is a process that you do some RSL or MRSL analysis. So those tests can also be incorporated with this question. For as a quality assurance program, you test different chemicals at least once in a year. Maybe for some brands you have to do seasonal test. Maybe for each season you have to do once test. So this kind of tests you can also consider for this question number 21. Does your facility have a documented quality assurance program that includes performance of your chemicals, so that you can do MRSL test or RSL test or other quality. So now one example of waste inventory. So this way you can keep your inventory for waste management. If you do that, it will be very easier for you to transfer this data and to how to Higg, so not how to Higg, to the higg.org in the self assessment form. So for what we face in the verification, that in the self assessment we find different quantities of waste factory has been put in the self assessment, but when we go to the verification, then the factory struggle to find out the quantity, how they have calculated the quantity. So if you make a summary like this, these are the requirements for Higg. All the material types are based on the Higg guideline: empty chemical drum or containers. Mainly it is for hazardous waste. Then film, printing frame, wastewater, sludge. So these point you have to go give information to your self-assessment. So if you make a summary based on your inventory, if you have maintain other inventory, you can make summary like this. Then this way you can maintain the data with documents, and then you can transfer this this data to the self-assessment. And it will be very easier for the verifiers to cross-check the data, cross-check the information how you are maintaining this inventory. And similarly for baseline, this is the example of the baseline. If you put this way your baseline in your self-assessment, it would be very easier for verifier to cross-check. And if you similarly, if you maintain this document in Excel format at your factory during verification, you can show this way we have calculated and put the data in the self-assessment, and then verifier it will be easier for the verifier to cross-check the data. Yeah, and for any person who can see this data, he can find out easily that how factory has normalized their like for example empty chemical drum and containers, how they have made normalized this data. Like you can go to the column how was your baseline calculated. So this way you can find out that how 0.036 come out. If you divide 18,000 divided by 500,000, you will find that 0.036 would come. So this way any person can easily calculate your baseline. Then the next year, next phase, this is the improvement. If you made an improvement, is this kind of column you can make for yourself. Then finally you have to only shift the data mainly for the column indicate your facilities change in waste quantity from the source. Maybe in here it is written in percentage, but in the platform you will only give the negative or positive number. If you are getting 2% reduction, then in the self-assessment format in higg.org, that website, you have to give only -2. Maybe for printing film you have reduced 5% of your waste, so you have to put that information -5 in that.
Right. Okay. For
Yeah.
going like a bullet train and going through all of these improvement recommendations based on the training. Excellent. So Vakil, if a factory wants to get detailed training, so normally it was like 1 or 2 day, full day sessions. But I understood that you are also supporting with online sessions of 2.5 hours each, right? Focus on specific topics. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Okay, Vakil. Thank you very much. What was great was how you tied in all those recommendations based on the Higg training to the gaps that we saw from Fatima. So starting off on the big picture of the textile industry, looking then at the overall Higg scores, looking at the gaps between self-assessment, verification scores, and the sections that we need improvements on, and then the training. What is now useful is all of that, as we saw from the feedback, it requires investment, it requires local knowledge. So what we want to see next is how does it work out in the individual countries? So for example, in Bangladesh, in India, in Pakistan, are there options available to finance? Are there options available to access experienced resources? Yeah. And what are the aspects in the particular country which are, let's say, supporting the improvement measures for water, for energy, and what are the things which are causing an issue? Yeah. So we have some interesting case studies and some examples of industry initiatives in Bangladesh, India, and Pakistan. But before we start that, with all of you, thank you for being patient and listening. Please type in any questions you would have. If there's something which you disagree with or something which is not clear, please type it in so that we can have a look. And perhaps we take a 5-minute break so you can also give some relief to your eyes, and maybe a bio break. So instead of 10, let's take 5 minutes. And then we want to start again in 5 minutes time. Meanwhile, what is useful for us to understand is if you can share which are the areas that you feel, yeah, if you invest in this particular aspect, it will help you increase your score. Please provide your feedback in the poll, and we'll be waiting around 4 to 5 minutes before we go deeper and see the solutions which are possible in the individual countries, and which are those international organization donors and so on who can support factories and who are already supporting factories, let's say. Yeah. If you all feel that you all don't need a 5-minute break, if you still feel energized, and then please also type in a short message in chat, and then we will reduce the break time. Yeah. So Farhad, you will be monitoring the questions or comments that are coming in through chat, right? Together with Wakil and Fatima. Yeah. Okay. So let's wait for 3 more minutes. Uh, Please give your eyes some break from the screen and also maybe your ears. Fatima, Wakil, and Akhlaq, Rashid, how do you see are the employees at the factories coming back after the Eid holidays, or are some of them still on extended holidays?
Yes, in Pakistan, everybody's came back, and now the operation is already normal. Also, the government has pulled all the restrictions, and even in the mid of the April, the government has allowed the factories, if they have the export orders, they can continue while showing the export orders to the Export Promotion Bureau. Uh, since then, they had the
Mm.
SOP. The factories can start their operations and they can continue the work, but have to follow the SOP of the sanitizers, hand washing facilities, and something like that.
Okay.
So factories are working, and no, mainly in Pakistan, as we discussed earlier, denim business is suffered. Rest of the business is secured, like home textile and knitwear business is secured, because most of the Pakistani factories are working with the brands who are at grocery stores
Mm.
like Aldi, Lidl, or something like that. So they can't. They had
Okay.
continued during the
All right.
covers.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. If any of you wants to say something, please raise your hand. We will then Farhad will unmute you. Yes, the poll results will be shared and will be made public to all. Yeah. There's a question, Fatima. Perhaps you can support by Mr. Raisul Islam. Question is there any time schedule for starting self-assessment for Higg FEM? Fatima, do you want to take it up?
Already self as there is no timeline. Submit the self-assessment deadline is 14th August.
Yeah.
But for the next year, you could again start in for this 2020 next
Okay.
year. But after completion, all the verification maybe from 1st January.
Right.
But for this, for last year, you could still complete it and submit it by 14th August.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that. All right. Let's wait for 20 more seconds. If any of you want to provide your feedback via the poll response, please do so now. Then we will publish it and share it so all of you can see the results. Yeah. And if anybody of you would want to talk, please raise your hand or type in a message in chat, and then we will unmute you. Just to make sure that because of connection and internet audio quality, that's why our events team suggested that we mute all of the colleagues. Okay, so we wait for 10 more seconds before we publish the results. Fatima, are you able to see my screen with the poll questions? No, not yet. Yeah.
I see.
You see it? Yeah.
Yeah. I see. Yeah.
Okay. Right. So thank you for all of those participants who provided feedback with the poll. Let me share the results. So as you see now on your screen, that many of you feel that investing into chemicals um, or improving that can support you in having a quicker progress to a higher scores. And that's an interesting point. There was a lot of research conducted on this point to see the nexus between chemical, water, and energy, and also waste. So there are, of course, some chemicals which require less water, that require less energy to fix to clothes, and that also require less of the chemical itself in production. So it will, of course, reduce your waste, be water efficient, be energy efficient, and not emit. So yeah, it's an interesting perspective that many of you also feel the same. There is some analysis and reports and case studies performed by UNIDO on this point, which is similar to what you all have provided feedback on. Okay, with that then, let's resume. So we've seen the big picture of why the overall brand, retailer, and textile industry is working towards sustainability, why they are shareholders, their stock prices depend on this, how many of them have signed up for the CEO water mandate on this topic. We also saw, based on the Higg FEM verification data analysis, Ms. Fatima shared example of the difference between the self-assessment scores and the verified scores. And then, of course, we had a look at what Vakil explained on how progress can be made in the sections on EMS, on waste, on chemicals, in some cases by training, in some cases by maintaining a good inventory, and also by interpreting and understanding the meaning and the reason for the individual questions. But now let's look at the picture on a country level. What is the situation in the country? What are the things which are working out well? What are the areas where there are challenges? And are there any international organizations or initiatives which will support the factories in making progress? So we start in alphabetical order, and then we start with Bangladesh. And Fatima, we would like to request that you take us through once again. Yeah.
Thank you, Rakesh. So if we come into Bangladesh point, as I believe from the very beginning, maybe before starting the Higg FEM in the country, new way, they have already considering the compliance, they already taken some areas to store the wastages. But for the factories which is established in maybe 15 years ago, 20 years ago, they are not considering the wastage areas. So struggles is there to store the wastages properly. It affects directly to the question number 3, 4, and 5, and still no legal requirement for the waste disposal. As the questionnaires expect that waste should be disposed through a licensed company, and practically there are no company who is handling the wastages in proper manner, and no tracking is possible also to them. In few countries other than Bangladesh, maybe from government side the wastage has collected and they are handling it in their way, but we don't have any government authorized body also who will collect the wastages, and also there is no specific guideline how it will handled or treated.
Right.
And in the chemical management section also, um, no specific guideline on chemical handling also from the factory level, from the purchasing to dispose. Completely the factories have to depend on the guideline on instruction from the brand sides. And what happened now when a new initiative, any of the new initiative came, no clear instruction received by the factory managements to implement it before going to any implement any initiative taken from the brand sides or anyone. They have to implement it by their own self, and after reviewing or verification, they have to gather knowledge that maybe it is problem, it have to maintain in this way. Uh, here, three things will be covered. First of all, clear instructional guideline is not available with the factories. Second thing is legal initiative is lacking there. And third thing is maybe assigning knowledgeable people or trained people, practically trained people, how they will handle it in terms of waste, in terms of chemical. So we are struggling in these areas.
Okay.
Capacity building is also lacking here, I feel.
Thank you, Fatima. And then, is it correct to understand that to address those areas, factories should reach out to a capacity development program like the GIZ, the REMC, or the Fabric project, or the IFC Pack project, to get some guidance, which is and to learn also from factories that have already implemented it?
Yes, yes, of course. Because experience exchange or training who are already in a good shape, so it will help the factories.
Okay, Fatima. Thank you very much for those insights and sharing the Bangladesh perspective. Yeah, let's go next then in the alphabetical order to India, and Venkat. Can you share a little bit about what we see in India and what you feel are the things which are working well? What are the things which are supporting? And so
yeah, good afternoon, everybody. So, India, we have started the big verification from 2018 by third parties. Previously, it was used by brands to improve their facilities and environmental system. India achieved a significant level in EMS, energy and water compared to the 2017 to 18. Most challenging section in India is waste management and chemical management. And they achieved a very good scores in terms of energy efficiency and water. So we have completed in India about 190 verifications covering textiles, cotton shoe factories, leathers, tanning, and other industries. We found that in most of the facilities, the good score achieved in energy efficiency, because mainly due to energy is very, very expensive, and facility try to reduce the power consumption by proper tracking, because people are really, it is a cost, directly involved in the cost. So there was proper tracking of this one. They try to get the opportunity to wherever possible to reduce the efficiency. In some of the examples are some factories using energy efficient motors such as servo motors to reduce this one, and also in the load, proper loading in each sections, because if you are regularly frequently changing the layouts and all, the load may increase. So that's why they are trying to see that proper balancing of the load, that way they can reduce the electricities. And also the energy audit is conducted in most of the facilities. That is also a good initiative from India. And use and lighting, use of LED lights to reduce the power consumption. And also some of the factories going for renewable energy such as solar power and wind energy, so that they get a reduction in tariff from the governments. There are a lot of initiatives taken by the India National Energy Conservation, Energy BEE, and Indo-Japan Business Forum for Energy Efficiency. Then identifying the most energy used process and proper controls. That means identify where exactly the which department using more powers. Then you should have a separate controls, how you can reduce, minimize the electricities. That means using a proper HP motors and other things. And also modernize equipment and also energy recovery practices they have adopted. That's why they're able to score a better. And also They are very happy to put the baseline and also the targeting the points where you can reduce the electricity, and they're tracking the electricity, not only the directly or indirectly the generator usage also. In the water section also, because here the government has initiated in some of the states there should be a zero liquid discharge, especially in Tirupur. So they have to comply with the requirements of ZLD. That way water consumption is reduced. There are proper tracking of the water so that no water is wasted. So in India becomes a water scarce region. All proper controls are in place. The identify the water resources where exactly it was used, mainly the process, and use submeters for each of the process to control the waste and conducting water efficiency audit. The most important thing is the water balance report. In some of the factories, we have seen a good example of water balance report. That means how much is come, how much has let out, and how much is the losses, so that where the losses are happening, they have a better control of the water usage so that they can control. That's how the good examples are seen. If you look at the India benchmarking, you see the total score, average score is after verification is 54. We can see that there is a very good score in energy, that's up to 75.6, the verified scores, and also 64.4 in water scores. So that clearly indicates the factories are taking steps to improve the use of energy and water. Then the most problem factories is the waste and the chemicals. The waste management, because the people, the shortage of space in the waste store, then hazardous waste transporters don't have the legal licenses and treatment, lack of knowledge to handle wastages, and limited access to information about transporting, storing, treating, and disposing. These are the things that waste, and also the waste disposal is a very big challenge, because if you are going for the incineration instead of the landfill, they get a better marks. So they are tracking where exactly it is finally is going with your subcontractors, and also your ZLDs, where you are tracking what is the final result, then you achieve better marks. So I'll focus more on the chemicals because we found the least score. Before that, we will see what are the better method of managing water resources. This is one of the best examples we have seen, identifying where exactly water is going in different places. So, and where exactly you have to put the meter to control meters and submeters, so that you know which process consuming more water, then you can think of what are the better methods you can use. So that means we found that water usage, the incoming water is the facility, and water resources, quantity of water used. So which are the departments where you can have a better control? So there in the water section, we found that a water balance report in some of the factories really done well regarding the water balance report, that is incoming water, the quantity of water used in the process. This is one of the good examples I can show that, how facilities are tracking the water so that it can reduce this one. See, now one of the examples is one is the borewell water, then the water provided by the government, GLDC and tanker. Then they identified the total consumption. Then because of the submeters, they are able to identify which are the places, how much is consumed and other things, and how much is total metered and how much is unaccounted. So that you can see where is unaccounted, what was the reason for that. Then outlet after treatment, when you look at the evaporation loss. If you look at the overall scenario, you can see that you have a clear water balance, then where is the losses is happening and which department utilizing the maximum water so they can have a better control. This is one of the good examples of we have seen some of the factories to have a water balance so that you can have a better control on the water source. Regarding the short problems in India is the chemical management. So the chemical management, go back. So you can see people have achieved even the level 1, level 2 and level 3, even this all the levels. So there's only 14% in level 2. That means setting the baselines itself is really challenging, and also level 3 achieving those things. So chemicals using tooling equipment, they are not identified, the chemicals used in the chemical supply, and chemical suppliers don't provide a MDS or MRSL declaration of those results. And in many factories, brands is not involving directly, therefore it's difficult to collaborate with brands or chemicals. You should purchase the chemicals, meet the RSL, MRSL requirements, and you have a documentation supporting this. When you look at this one, some of the factories have initiated, but not. Then technical data and specifications for all chemicals and recipes or process where chemicals are used. Facilities must incorporate MRSL into their business practices, establishing effective MRSL programs. Ensure that the chemicals having a third-party certifications such as ZDSC or MRSL conference, Blue Eye, Sign, or Ecotex. Suppose even if you buy the chemicals from the MRSL requirement, Ecotex, or the Blue Sign, then you get to score a better marks.
Right.
Then
So,
for the chemicals
Venkat,
not used,
and nowadays also with ZDHC, there is
Yeah.
this MRSL conformance program,
Yeah.
wherein there are a lot more options available, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So ensure that the good practice facilities are aware about the hazardous chemicals and purchase accordingly. Getting declarations from chemical manufacturers that they are complied with MRSL, RSL. Ensure that the chemicals are having a third-party certification such as ZDSC or MRSL conformance. For the chemicals not being used, go back. In the production should have a process in place to review the list of ingredients against MRSL and RSL. Yeah, can go. So this is the question we get most of the facilities. Does the facility document the systematically monitor, update, and demonstrate compliance with the manufacturing requirements? So facilities must incorporate an MRSL into their businesses practices, establishing an effective MRSL program, chemical inventory, chemical review policy, process flow, list of non-conforming chemicals, and phase out plan for non-conforming products, and MRSL applicable to facility, example, own MRSL or a customer MRSL or ZDSC MRSL. Then positive lists chemical suppliers, and a communication to the suppliers gives a supporting evidence that you are implementing the MRSL. So it should have a more well-documented program to review the process method to robust. The facility demonstrates that the expectation of MRSL compliance is actively communicated to the upstream suppliers, even your upstream suppliers, even your subcontractors, and how better you have control with your MRSL requirements. One more back. Regarding the RSL conformity, technical data specification sheets and recipes of products, and note training responsible for the chemical management, then chemical spill and emergency plan in most of the facilities is missing. So these are some of the good examples of hazardous waste warehouse where you have a dedicated place, it is well ventilated, away from the production, and no leakages and nothing. This is one of the good examples we have seen in some of the factories. And also, see what is the control. This is the chemical storage houses where the chemicals stored properly with proper segregation, with signages, and also with secondary containments. So these are the good examples that factories can incorporate to have a better score is concerned. So these are some of the good examples where your chemical weighing, so that means a traceability. of a chemicals is very important. That means you have to trace back to the which lot, which supplier it is one. So from the recipes to the final product, we have to trace back up to the lot numbers and where it was purchased, whether any deviations. So that way you can achieve a better marks in the chemical management system.
Venkat, thank you very much for those insights and examples to show what are the initiatives that the local governmental laws and situations are supporting with, and also these good examples of the good practices. Thanks a lot for giving the perspective
Thank
of
you.
India, Venkat. Yeah. And then with that, let's look at the neighbor Pakistan and see what are the aspects which are supporting the industry in Pakistan, and to get some local insights. Yeah. For that, I would like to request Mr. Akhlaq Hussain and Mr. Rashid Mansoor. Can you all please give us some idea and more information about the situation in Pakistan?
Yes.
Akhlaq, maybe you want to
Yes.
start off? Yeah.
Yes. Thank you very much, Rakesh. In Pakistan, fortunately, we are part of the subcontinent. So mainly we have the same sort of problems and same sort of opportunities like in Bangladesh and India as well. So mainly the developing agencies and the government of the other sectors, they are working in Pakistan. Like we are mainly USAID is heavily invest in the green projects like renewable energy, and also we are blessing of having the GIZ. GIZ is working with most of the factories in Pakistan to upgrade their sustainable and environment management system. Definitely along with the buyers. So there is also a buyers forum in Pakistan. All of the buyers who are working in Pakistan, they have the platform. So they are also closely work with ILO, USAID, and GIZ. So any sort of initiative that take place, that should be initiated by the buyers forum as well. So right now we are also having the CPEC, China Pakistan Economic Corridor. So there is a lot of renewable energy projects is also being initiated in Pakistan. Definitely we are also getting the funding from IFC and ILES mainly project is being running in Pakistan, who are supporting the Pakistan long-term projects on sustainable development. ILES is the environment and labor environment standards that is that having a lot of projects inside. Like GIZ is also following that, USAID is also following that, and also WWF is also following that. The WWF is also giving the consultancy to the factories who wants to upgrade their level in the water management system. And finally, they if they would like to achieve the Alliance for Water Stewardship certification. So these are the programs that are being running in Pakistan right now. Just to focus, if we talk about the Higg, like in 2017, there is a very less awareness in Pakistan regarding the Higg. We always appreciate that Bangladesh is a step ahead on 2017. But later on, Pakistan is also adopted a lot of good practices and achieved the good scores. In 2017, if we compare our score, so since then, energy and water, we are actually Pakistan is a country where the water is very extremely low down. Some areas in Pakistan, like Rawalpindi, the water level is 600 feet. So companies have no choice other to save their water in order to run their productions. So similarly, in 2017 and 2018, if we compare our scores, so energy and water, they got the very good scores, and rest of the other areas, they got less. As I said, even in 2008, we are facing a very bad condition of energy, lot of load shedding in Pakistan. Factories even shifted to other countries like Bangladesh and Jordan. Then after that, in 2013 onward, the condition of the government is also good, who are providing the electricity. And also main of the major textile sectors, they had adopted their own powerhouses, and they are generating their own energy. So that's why even on the Higg, they got the very good score on water and energy. Next, please. So similarly, if you can see, still like the India, Venkat had showed a very good example of the water balance. Some of the factories in Pakistan, they are also giving a very good examples on water balance. But even some factories, they are misunderstand about the concept of water balance. Like the water balance is like what you extract from the ground and what you had in your production area and what you had in the domestic area, and finally what you had discharged. So there is a balance. So sometimes they misunderstand these questions, and uh, right now they are not getting the very good score on the question 7 on water balance. Even if we talk about the scarcity of the water, as I said, in Pakistan we are on the extremely high risk level countries where the water shortage is too huge from the government, because textile is the one of the major chunk. Along with the textile, we are also having the cementing industry. So cement industry is also having a lot of water that has been used in the production processes. So government is now taking the steps on serious note to control these type of waters, and also they had now started to billing the groundwater. Prior to that, there was no legal requirement. Anybody who want to extract the water, they can have their a pump or turbine, and they can easily get the water from ground. But now they have to take the approval from the government, and also the government will start billing to them on monthly basis like the electricity. Next, please. Yeah, similarly, as I said, we have a very good score on EMS and EMS also, and because lot of client is also working in Pakistan since a long, so most of the factory have achieved their EMS environment management system 14,000 since a long. So they have margins to get a very good score on that area, but still there are challenges in Pakistan. Peoples and factories are not getting a very good score on the wastewater and air emissions. As I said, Fatima, similarly in Pakistan, most of the factory, they are following the ZDAC requirement and upgrade their and upload their reports on ZDAC platform or IP. But still, most of the factories are only following the local legal requirements in order to have the wastewater treatment plant report from the third party, but that are not as stringent as compared with the ZDAC. So on question 7, definitely they get very low score sometimes, and even sometimes there is a problem of the heavy metals that had been detected on their reports. So that is also the reasons of getting the low scores. Similarly, very less concept of Pakistan that people are or factories are being used the recycled water into their process. Now most of the factory have started the initiative, but still we are beyond to follow these requirements of use the recycled water into their process. So some factories have started the working, but it will take time. So definitely once they use the closed loop water, they will improve their score in the wastewater. There is a lot of misconception and misunderstanding on the air emission. Actually, of course, there is always a law in Pakistan about the air emissions. Like we have the no objection certificate or environment permit that is talking about the air emission, wastewater, water discharge, and also the chemical management. So in one permit, everything is also there. Also, we have the PEQS, Punjab Environment Quality Standard. Similarly, we have the Sindh Environment Quality Standard. So one have to follow that on air emissions, wastewater, and noise, light, and all others monitoring reports. So while selecting the applicable questions, they are always misunderstand and the production processes that is being involved, they are always misguided on that. Like the finishing factories are also dyeing process. So definitely they have the finishes process. They have the dyeing process. They have the standard. So sometimes they put the question and answer no. So when during the verifications, when we select these inaccurate, so their level 2 and 3 disappeared. But honestly, on level 2, and they are working as per legal requirement, because in legal requirement they have to have the air emission from their center, boiler, and also generator, and even on other areas. But when we inaccurate their level 1, so their level 2 vanished. So in this way, and it's very easy to calculate the air emission from the finishing and dyeing. Like my other colleague said, the formula is very easy. Volume is always equal to time into flow. So when we have the report from the third party for the particular matters, then the nitrogen oxide and the carbon dioxide. So we can easily calculate. The report is for the instance. So when we multiply it, number of chemicals and number of days and years, we can easily calculate the air emission. It's not a big deal on it. So in this way, factories can easily improve their score. Definitely, when we go for the abatement process or air emission devices, it will take time because investment is also need a huge, but even though local ventilation system is also there, but sometimes factories misunderstand and they do not put the local exhaust systems can also be example of the ventilation and can also be the example of control devices. Next, please. Similarly, in the waste management, like Bangladesh and India, we are far beyond about the score. Still, factories are struggling to get out into the level 1. And in the self-assessment, they have always, I mean, on the level 3 as well in the waste management. But actually, when, as the Vakil said, that we have the question 3, 4, and 5, when we mark it on the self-assessment, yes, but eventually they are having any problem, like they do not have a good waste area which is weather protected or heat protected or like fire protected. So in this way, they are always on the level 1. So even on the limited, sometimes they are claiming that they have a very good management system and they have the visited facility and they have done the audit for the waste contractor. But the requirement that need to be checked during the audit, that is always not comply as per the how to Higg guidelines. Similarly, if we talk about the chemical management, very few factories are on the level 3. Uh, Even most of the factories are on level 1. So level 1, the reasons behind is that there is a lack of suppliers that are registered in ZDIC. So when they check their inventory in check report of the ZDIC, their compliance status is always 46 or 45%. So on this, they cannot claim that they are following all the MRSL, RSL supplier. So question, they are always lacking on question 11 and 12. Similarly, storage area, they have storage area, but it's not up to the mark. Like sometimes it is a shed area and it's not a fire or weather protected. So in this way, they are always lacking in scores. So similarly, in the level 3 areas, and the level 2 is very easy and it's a misconception actually. Like the question 14, they can easily get the scores if they have any issue on the level 1. So they just have to have the improvement plan, that how they improve their MRSL, RSL, or any issue that has been highlighted in the level 1. So from level 2 is very easy, they can get the scores. But level 3 is quite difficult to achieve. Like India and Bangladesh, we are very, we have the client representative in Pakistan, but not like India and Bangladesh. So client representative always support to Bangladesh and India, but unfortunately in Pakistan, the client representative are very less. So they are mostly on the CSR side and social compliance side, but not in the sustainability side. So even if we talk about the brands that are closely working, Levi's and H&M and also JCPenney, they are very closely working with the supplier in order to get a high score. But there is no concrete evidence that they are working with the chemical manufacturer in order to have a new trials on the chemical that are less hazardous and that are usable in the production. On this, definitely Pakistan is lacking. Next, please. Thank you very much from my side. I would like to say Mr. Rashid, he can talk about AWS further.
Yes, please. Rashid. Rashid. Rashid, can you hear us?
So he's not over here. Let me share with you a good example in Pakistan. Like TUV is also involved on this process. WWF and AWS is also over there. So globally, first textile company in Pakistan who have been achieved the AWS certification in Pakistan, that is the US group. US have 10 to 14 different units. Among all, they have achieved the 3 factories on the AWS. So, Mr. Rakesh, if you can please open the link. It's just 1 or 2 minutes, so everybody can have this news.
Yes. So at the moment, Akhlaq, we already included the summary when you started talking. So it is linked to this point here, AWS, where
Yeah,
what you see is there is US denim.
Yes, there is a link. Can you please open that? It's just a 1 minute video, so everybody can get the idea how they have achieved and what they have achieved.
Akhlaq, we'll be sharing the link at the end. Yeah, it
Okay,
won't
no
be
problem.
possible to play it. Yeah. Okay.
So
Thank
thank you
you
very
for
much. Thank you.
yes. Thanks a lot for giving those examples. So we realize that we are on time. If you all can please bear with us for maybe 3 or 4 minutes, then we can go through it. What we heard today was on a high level, the current situation with regards to why the industry is moving there, what is in terms of the actual current status with Higg scores, the differences, where is the big gap between self-assessment and verification scores, how are the challenges in each of these countries, Pakistan, Bangladesh, India, and what are the actors who are supporting the industry there, whether it be GIZ, WWF, World Bank, USAID, and so on. So in order to move finally ahead, this is for your reference, how to Rhineland has been involved in the industry on input chemicals, what we heard about MRSL, on the emission aspect, and also on the audits and verifications. And this gives an overview of how we work with SAC. So should you have questions, all of you will receive at the end an email with the presentation. Please feel free to go through it once again. If you have questions, then you can of course reach out to our expert speakers who spoke today. And as we go further into Q&A, please help us by providing a short feedback, what you feel at the moment. About what you heard today and the content. Also, please share with us at a later time feedback with regards to what are the topics you would like to know more about. What are the aspects which were covered today with the presentation we had? What are the things which met your expectations, and what are the aspects which you want us to elaborate in the future? So if you could please look at the poll on your screen, there's a final question. And if you could please select your feedback, it allows us to ensure that going further, we are able to adjust the content, the topics, and based on what you feel, yeah. So please choose the option. There are 4 options there. Your questions, your comments, your criticism, everything is welcome. So also please put in the chat message. Yes.
Yeah, someone have asked the question about how we can reduce water consumption like 80%.
Yes,
again, there is a misconception that people are getting this like this way. The question is about their sources, like they have the 3 or 4 sources, like the groundwater, they have the municipal water, they have the rainwater. So among all, if they all are 80%, so they can reduce, take the chances to add their reduction level on them. For example, if they have only the groundwater, so even if they have a reduction of 1%, it could be considered as a good example, and they will get the score. So here example is like that, they have the groundwater 10%, and they have the rainwater 80%. So they have only have the reduction on groundwater, which is a 10%. So in this way, they cannot get the score.
Okay, thank you, Akhlaq. As we come towards the end, thank you very much for feedback. So it's useful to see that almost 71% of you have mentioned that there are other topics that you would want to know, and that today's content was partially fulfilling your expectation, and the remaining 29% have mentioned that the contents for today covered the points you had in mind. Yeah. So meanwhile, please put in your comments or questions, and if any of you would like to ask question verbally, please just type in a short message or raise your hand. You can do that by clicking on the participants, and next to your name you can say raise your hand. And there's a good suggestion here. So we are looking at all the participants, and perhaps Farhad, you can try to do this. If you can look at all the participants' names and take a picture virtually of all the participants that joined today, yeah, via Zoom. So by looking at the profile, if we can get a picture of the participants from today, yeah? Farhad, if possible, please support with that. Or what you could do is at the end of today's call, when you receive the presentation, please share a short picture of yourself. We will combine the picture together and we will make a small collage so we can see all the participants who joined today. We will, that's a good suggestion, very good suggestion. Who was that? Everyone, Mr. Firoz Alam Talukder, very good suggestion. We will definitely do that. So we'll wait for 1 more minute to get your questions. If you all have any questions at this moment, please share those questions via the chat message, or yeah, and let us know. Akhlaq, Rashid, Vakil, Fatima, is there anything that you would like to add? I mean, it was a Sunday, and it was a holiday for many of the participants based in India and Pakistan. Thank you for taking time out from your private schedule. Is there anything else you want to add,
Yeah.
Fatima, Vakil, Rashid, Akhlaq, Venkat?
Yeah, I would like to say thank you to everyone who has been participated in Pakistan. So, like other services, TUV Rayland is also offering consultancy services in your chemical management area. If you would like to have a more chat and more training session on that, we are always welcome to accommodate you. So you can contact with us, me, Mr. Rashid, or even Mr. Rakesh. So even we are open to provide you a customized services like the customized training and awareness sessions on your demand. Thank you
Right.
very much.
So as next steps, you all will receive the presentation that we used today. And when you reply to this, if possible, please share a short picture by Tuesday so that we can make a collage of all the participants that joined today. Yeah, and you'll also see the contact details of all the colleagues that we have in our hubs in Pakistan, Bangladesh, and India. Thank you very much for taking time. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for all the questions, and special thanks to our panelists today, Ms. Fatima, Mr. Vakil, Venkat, Akhlaq, Rashid, but also to the colleagues from our events team who organize everything, Mr. Tanveer, Mr. Farhad, and Mr. Monjurul Haq. Thank you very much. Have a nice Sunday and the rest of a good week ahead.